I'm sick of these kids who are laughing throughout this movie. But are they laughing at the movie or with the movie? I almost don't blame them. If this was the only part they were laughing at, I would be with them. We get to the bloater, the first bloater that the boy is going to kill. He looks like me. He looks like me naked, dragging myself through the mud. He looks like he was just hiding from the predator. And then the boy has to get him right through the neck, and he looks like a big piggy. And I was like, God dang it. Representation. And I do think, without getting into spoilers, I do think you should check this out in theaters. If you enjoyed 28 Days Later and 28 Weeks Later, I think there's something here for you that you shouldn't miss out on just because someone said it sucked or whatever. There's something here for you you shouldn't miss out on. You might even have a good laugh. That's my thoughts. Spoiler free. Check it out. Make up your own mind. Catch me in the spoilers, and if you've seen it, I definitely want your thoughts on the events in this movie. All right, spoiler time. Pop, 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 pop. What's that? The popcorn has stopped. It's time for spoilers for 28 Years Later. If you have not seen the movie yet, I do recommend going and watching it. But if you're one of those people who don't care about spoilers, you just said, yeah, spoil the whole movie for me. I don't want to waste my money. All right, here we go. Right from the beginning. Okay, opening sequence was very jarring and unexpected. And let me say this before I even get into this movie. I think part of the reason the movie was a bit off for me was that the trailer essentially summarizes the movie. You know what I mean? I think that was a bit frustrating, was that even though the trailer doesn't spoil necessarily everything that happens, it essentially summarizes the experience of the movie and many of the events of the movie, where I thought in my head I hoped things would go in a certain way. That's fine that that's not what happens, but you know, the use of the poem, the 1915 poem, which was very shocking and very scary. That too, it's just a montage segment of the movie, and I don't mean just as, like, I'm not trying to downplay it and make it sound bad, but yeah. So even the beginning is exactly starting off with the Teletubby footage, and I was like, oh, okay, so the trailer is just showing the movie scenes in order, which made me a little frustrated. I mean, it made me think, oh, so I know what's going to happen in a weird kind of way, and I did, and I didn't. But I think the opening sequence, right off the bat, was a little off because I do think also the trailer depicted the terror of it a little bit better. I did think the editing overall with this movie was a little odd. It didn't quite get me to feel what I was seeing, except what I would say is, look, when we start with the kids and they're locked in the room and everyone's scared, hearing all the screams and the zombies are outside, and then the zombies break in, and thankfully they don't show us the kids being slaughtered, but it still is what it is, you know. But we see the one kid get out, and then something about the way everything was framed and shot, when we saw, because the opening is trying to summarize the path for how long it takes for people to become infected and become zombies. So essentially, when the kid first, we see the zombies come into the room, so the kid's seeing what happens to them, but then he comes out and he sees different parents just crawling, puking, lots of puking. And I thought it kind of looked silly. It kind of looked off-putting, and maybe it was because of the starting with the Teletubbies, I'm not sure. But even the music was kind of light and kind of not taking it very seriously. So it was kind of off-putting for me. Or I was like, I kind of feel weird. Like, the music is making this kind of whimsical and kind of not real. And in addition to that, just even the way it was kind of framed, it just kind of looked, there's something goofy about it, and I couldn't quite put my finger on it. And then the kid runs to the church, and I thought this was going to be the same church from the first movie. You know, that's wishful thinking. Just a lot of love for that first movie is always in my chest. But what I would say is that what actually got me about this opening sequence was when the parishioner or the priest, he was not bothered by anything happening at all. He was praying and grateful, and he let the zombies come attack him and bite him. And I thought it was stunning when the boy went to hide after taking the priest's necklace, which I thought was interesting. The priest didn't tell him, let yourself be eaten. He said, here's my necklace, and do what you feel you need to do. But he was ultimately telling the boy, this is not bad, this is beautiful. And which was just, it was kind of in a way summed up why this beginning is so unusual. And then when the boy hid, and then we see the priest get attacked and the screaming and everything, and then all of a sudden the priest rises out from the crowd fully infected, still with his arms out, and the music swells, and I realize, oh, this is a religious song, and this is actually a very cheerful, beautiful moment, in particular for the priest who feels that God has done this, and it's the rapture, it's the time. And I thought it was amazing that the priest himself, the zombie priest, led everyone outside of the church, which actually gave the opportunity for the boy to escape. And I thought that was the beginning of what felt so different about this movie. I think 28 Days Later was so raw and so fresh and in the moment. And 28 Weeks Later was a little bit more traditional, and just did some things. I think what got me about 28 Weeks Later that bothered me was first Robert Carlyle's character abandoning his wife at the start of the movie, which is a departure from the message and the activities of the first movie. The first movie is all about sticking together through the hard times, and then the second movie, hard times hit and husband abandons wife. Like, man, that by itself was hard and made me hate the character, to the point that even though we got the recurring theme of the 28 Days Later from John Murphy, I didn't feel any, like, it sort of sucked away my fear and hope. I mean, it was still kind of scary, but I was like, man, I kind of don't care if you get eaten now because you've done this. And then later on in that same movie, when the wife reappears, because actually she is immune to this virus, which is a surprise, and then he goes in and kisses her, and it's the kiss that actually shows that, oh, you can still be infected by this person. And then he turns, and then he violently kills her, and she's strapped down, she can't do anything. And that kind of extreme domestic violence aspect of the movie, really, it just soured the entire film for me. You know what I mean? It's just, when movies get too real, and that's why I watch fantasy. You know what I mean? I watch, even horror is on some level fantasy, and zombies are kind of the ultimate fantasy, where regular human beings become a ghoul. They're not really human anymore, so you can elevate, you can escape a little bit the real life consideration of what it's suggesting is happening. So that really soured the movie for me. And then after that, he was kind of the first alpha. He's the first zombie alpha running around. I appreciate that this movie took that notion, that the fact that Robert Carlyle's zombie was always watching, and he seemed to be kind of leading zombies, even if inadvertently, but he was always watching and had a target, and seemed to be having some kind of conscious notion of how he was going to attack. So I appreciate that becomes a large part of this movie. That's a natural evolution. But on the other hand, what eats me up is what eats me up. It still just eats me up that that's what his character was, and that ultimately the fear of the movie is that this domestic abuse is now going to spread to the kids. And that was just a very real and raw take, which now that I'm talking about it, actually kind of makes me appreciate the movie in a different kind of way, because it's really, whether it's meaning to or not, the suggestions of how to deal with and escape domestic violence is kind of threaded into what would be an otherwise typical zombie movie. And I'm more interested in that, and I don't care so much about the cure aspect, but the whole notion that this movie is kind of a, I wouldn't say therapy, but more like exposure to the notion of domestic violence and even domestic, like a neglect and abandonment, which is what happens at the beginning. So I really think, with that in mind, the whole notion that the genre can do something that's so different, which is what the first movie does in the first place. So, the first movie sets a precedent. It has a visual style. It's very tactile. And like I said with this movie, 28 Days Later feels like a movie anyone can make, and it makes you feel like I could make something too. And it's very inspiring in that nature. 28 Weeks Later is a little bit more professional looking. It's to me it's too clean. I think it's too traditional. It's too clean. Not really a negative against the movie, but just for my experience, I really enjoyed the raw experience of the first movie. But with that in mind, the whole domestic notion, like I did not expect that aspect to be in that movie, and it's always soured the movie for me. And I don't necessarily want to hold it against the movie for doing it, but it hurts me personally just because it's something I've experienced in my own life, and it's just not something I would ever expect to invade the zombie genre. I might expect it somewhere else, but not the zombie genre. And so, just to bring it back to 28 years later, with the whole priest thinking, oh, this is God, this is God, this is a beautiful thing. And to have that religious experience right up front, which is, again, off putting and, oh, okay, you know what I mean? This is another way to see everything. This is a totally different way to look at this situation. And again, when the priest leads everyone out, it's just this kind of remarkable experience of, oh, he's still a religious leader in this moment. It's very bizarre, and hence is also the beginning of the thing that this movie is not going to be what you expect. I think for as traditional as 28 Weeks Later is, it's still in the vein of 28 Days Later. It's still, once the zombie violence happens, it's a 28 Days Later universe type of movie. And it's just kind of repeating the same things, but giving us new visuals and new environments, and the evolution of the virus being an alpha, which I think is interesting that the first alpha we get is from the infection of someone who's actually immune. So that being in mind, when we get to the introduction of the young boy, 28 years later, I was a little, again, off put by all of a sudden the first half of this movie pounds a lot of music into I'd say the first 20 minutes or so. And I kind of wish it didn't do that. I think I was a bit distracted. I kind of would have liked to just be in there raw, listen to the environment. What does this little town sound like to this kid, where they don't have power and they don't have any music that's not made by hand? I would have liked to see, music be a part of the movie. And I really liked that. I mean, like handmade music to be more of a part of the movie. But they just start off with this music, and I guess we're in the boy's headspace. We get introduced to the mom, who is, at first, I thought she was infected, the way she's thrashing around, and the later reveal of what's going on with her. But, we get so much intercutting with medieval footage and some intercutting with 28 Weeks Later. There's so much intercutting. I wasn't sure as much, is this just artistic license to show, hey, here's the town basically reduced to medieval times. You see everyone making arrows. Is that the point of this? Because then it's repeated to a point where I'm like, I don't need it anymore. I'm more interested in just seeing what they do. Like I had the bizarre experience, and I hate to say it, I had the bizarre experience of, like, I wish I could recut this movie, because I just feel like the filmmaking is so strong, the editing doesn't need to do all of this work. I think it would be fascinating by itself to just see the town as it is, to just hear the sound. Because actually, my theater that I was in, that I watched this, had a fantastic wraparound sound. Because when we're in the wheat fields later on in the movie, you can hear everything. You can really hear everything, and you can hear bugs buzzing by, and it's like it feels like you're there. The sound design was fantastic, but also the theater I had a fantastic speaker system. So I would have really loved to have experienced that first thing when the boy wakes up and Aaron Taylor Johnson's his father, and dang it, oh no, I still have the note. All right, and Jodie Comer, that's his mother. You know, this music just pounds through this opening, and I think the first sequence is so loud. I would have loved for it to just be quiet and just for us to hear the world, get that sound design, feel like we're there, like we can hear people chopping outside the window, something. You know, I think let us be immersed. Let us be immersed. Stop taking us away and suggesting, you know, history repeating itself. Let us be immersed in what we're experiencing. Because when we then get to, oh, what we're doing is we're crossing the bridge that's only opened by because they're on a little island outside of the mainland where there is a pathway, a walkway, but it disappears with the tide. So once it's nighttime, the tide comes up and you can't cross it anymore. And I think if they just let this opening sequence where we're introduced to everyone, because it kind of felt like a title sequence. Like the movie didn't have a real title sequence, but it felt like this whole following 10 minutes was this massive extended title sequence where I was like, just put names up, you know, costume designer, producer, writer, you know what I mean? Like you're cutting so much, you might as well make this a traditional title sequence. So I felt like by the time we got to them actually, you know, Aaron Taylor Johnson's taking his son, Spike, I love that his name is Spike, when he's taking him across the bridge, and then we get the start of the poem. And I really wish that instead of that music, get rid of that music from the beginning and all of the cutting. Just drop all of that. Instead of that, let us be there. Let us hear the sound design. I don't care if it's boring. Let us be a little bit bored, because the opening was incredible anyway. Let us be a little bit bored. Let us hear the noises. Let us hear the birds. Let us hear the people working. Let's just be with that. And I even think the poem should not have just been something laid on. I think it would have been wonderful if one of the older people could have just been like, oh, I was a history major when all this happened, you know, and maybe they were just saying the poem, and it could have just been something that was in the background that the boy was hearing and not really paying. Maybe he notices, but he's not really paying attention to it. You know, 1, 2, 3, 4. You know what I mean? If someone was just saying it, let that naturally come up, because already this movie's starting with me having all these notes, right? But if at least we had that, just let us be bored a little bit. And then when they walk across the channel, then when the real version comes in and we get, again, more editing, repeating of the same visuals we just got, which feels like a title sequence, then that has more impact, because I just was a little bit just taken out. Like, there's too much music. Like, you don't, I felt like there was an insecurity or something. Like they were worried that today's generation would be bored and they needed to like meme us out. You know what I mean? I'm like, no. You know, you gotta teach the younger generation to shut the hell up. You know what I mean? You gotta teach them to shut the hell up. You can't just spoil them with noise. Unless that wasn't the intention. You know, I can't say what the intention was, but that's what gave me a lot of my mixed feelings right up front. Aside from the fact that there was clearly teenagers or young adults chuckling behind me for the first half of the movie. But it was just this odd kind of choice. I'm like, let me feel this movie. And then we get to the part where it's like, okay, I'm sick of these kids who are laughing throughout this movie. But are they laughing at the movie or with the movie? I almost don't blame them. If this was the only part they were laughing at, I would be with them. But they've been laughing for the whole frickin' movie, so I can't actually appreciate or laugh with them, these assholes. We get to the bloater, the first bloater that the boy is gonna kill, and it's a bloater. It's a fat. He looks like me. He looks like me naked, dragging myself through the mud. He looks like he was just hiding from the predator. And then the boy has to get him right through the neck, and he looks like a big piggy. And I was like, God dang it. Representation. Fat people represented. This is what I was just complaining about. Oh my God. Fat people representation. The plus size audience. We were represented in 28 years later. Yes. And then there's more bloaters. And what I think is interesting that doesn't go acknowledged by the characters is that there is a bloater child who's just standing there watching kind of innocently. And she does not try to attack them, she just runs away, which is an interesting hint at what perhaps is going on in this universe. That obviously later on in the movie we have the one zombie who's pregnant. We'll get to that, but and produces a child, but it's just like, oh, like right up front they're letting us know something. And I have to say, I really love everything with Aaron Taylor Johnson and Spike walking around in the woods trying to teach Spike how it works. And even when the first zombies show and they see the alpha, I was a little bit annoyed by calling him the alpha and the comfort. I kind of wish it was a discovery rather than they already know. But at the same time, why wouldn't they know? You know, so it just reminded me so much of Army of Darkness, which I think also called them Alpha. Oh, not Army of Dark, Army of the Dead. Zack Snyder's Army of the Dead, which also called them Alphas. And then I believe, what's it called? What's it called? And I think Zombieland 2 also called them Alphas, or at least, or I think it was Terminators, one of them. So there's already smart zombies presented in these other zombie media. So I just have mixed feelings. But granted, again, 28 weeks later establishes the what I would say is the first appearance of an alpha. So in all likelihood, any one of these zombies could have been bitten by Robert Carlyle, and that's what started it. Or there's maybe other people. You know, who knows how this could have happened, but we know that there's a pathway to this happening from 28 weeks later. And within its own universe, it's not cheating. But I was a little bit annoyed. I'm like, what I love about the first movie is the discovery. You know, people don't know. And that's what I didn't like about the second movie. So, oh, we'll have a cure. And I'm like, well, if you have a cure, how can we have a sequel? And it's not that I'm not against, I love cures, I love vaccines, but it just, what made the first movie special was that there is no cure. We don't know what to do. It just made it like, oh, wow, that's an interesting circumstance where, you know, people really don't know what to do about this situation. And that's what keeps us trapped in the first movie. But in the case of this movie, I love seeing how they work when they're running away from the zombies, and because the alpha literally says, run! I'm like, oh, crap, it's like Caesar's out there. Run! And I like how they have their whole system. We run, we get a good distance ahead, turn around, I fire, and then you turn around, you fire, and it's how they can prolong their ability to run and hide, which was, I thought that was brilliant. I loved seeing how their survival works, and it was cool having them hide out in that house, and then what's set up with the herd of deer that are running around. That the herd of deer runs right by the house and destroys the house that they're hiding in. And it's just like, oh God, the things that you don't appreciate in modern day life, where someone can just come and fix a house or whatever, like there's none of that. Just watching things degrade and fall apart. But yeah, I would say this was, you know, I really loved that chunk of the movie. Then we get to them returning, and Aaron Taylor Johnson's being a bad husband while everyone's partying, celebrating Spike's first adventure out in the real world. Aaron Taylor Johnson sneaks away with a little honey, and you see her earlier in the movie give him a look, and he looks back, and it's it's hinted that something may be going on here, but I was a little bit perturbed by how the very next day Spike is ready to stab his father over this. I think it's just, to me, I didn't feel anything in the front of the movie made this work. It was just like your dad just spent the last 10 minutes of the film protecting you because you were afraid, and you know that you're afraid, and it's kind of a clear part of your arc. So now all of a sudden you're not afraid, you're going to stab your dad. And I'm not saying cheating isn't bad, but I'm just like, to jump to that, I thought was kind of weird and sudden. And then even more than that, when the kid burns the shed and distracts everyone so he can get the mom out to go to the doctor, because they see the fire set by the doctor, Dr. Ray Fiennes. I just thought, this, again, seen this in other movies, I don't necessarily like how this is playing out. I would have been more interested, oddly, I would have been more interested if this was a family trip and the Aaron Taylor Johnson had to die because he was protecting them and forcing the son to be, protecting the mom by himself. But to have the son go with the mom, I'm like, this is like, dude, you were horrified and you were not shooting right. So what's this bizarre confidence in you that you can protect your mom through an environment that you could not protect yourself in? I just thought that was a little bit bizarre. It was kind of a character leap for me. And yeah, I just feel like I didn't quite buy it, but nonetheless, once we were in it, it's just like that music. I didn't agree with the music, but once we're in the sequence, okay, we're good. Once we're in the epic journey of him walking with his mom trying to get to the doctor, once we're there, it's suddenly very, very good and beautiful. And I was moved by the story. And we had a removal of a trailer shot. One of my favorite trailer shots is that super skinny, emaciated zombie rising out of the wheat field. And that shot's not in here. It's a reveal where the son's talking to the mom, and then the camera just moves, and okay, there's a zombie there, and it's that zombie. But I'm like, this, put the shot in the movie, please. You know what I mean? I just feel like there are times when a trailer uses a shot that's in the movie and it's not in the movie, and I get it. Like The Dark Knight, there's a shot of Batman getting in the tumbler, driving the tumbler out of the bat bunker, and that's not in the movie, and it's not missed. I still want to see that footage, but it's not missed. In this case, oh my god, while they're talking and the mom is having an out of time moment, let's use this moment to show that shot of the zombie coming up, unless I missed it, unless I looked away because those people were still talking. Yeah, just come on, give me the trailer shot, because it's such a good shot. I just want to linger on it for a minute. I hate it when there's a wonderful trailer shot and it's not used in the movie, because in the trailer it's always cut like that. You can't appreciate it. But then it turns the trailer into like, ooh, this is the footage. It happens, so you saw it in the trailer. Yeah, fuck you, put it in the movie. But yeah, so yeah. But beyond that, when we got to first we get the military kid, and he's such a punk. He's such a jerk. And again, I get mixed feelings. Like, is this a symbol of all military to you, or is it just to show like, hey, how kids are today in the present? I mean, I also thought it was, when we got to the military sequence, like, we do establish early on when Spike and his dad are hiding in the roof of the house, they do see a ship, a quarantine ship, floating by. And I thought it looked a little close anyway. It was a little too close. So they say, oh, that's a quarantine ship. The rest of the world's going on, but we're quarantined. all of a sudden the movie cuts to a group of soldiers running away from the infected, and that's where we get the sequence where they're running through that sort of concrete. I don't know what it is. Is it what is it supposed to be? Is it a floodgate? Is it a canal? I'm not entirely sure what it is, but we have that sequence, and it's in the trailer. I had hoped it would be a part of the flashback sequence of showing how the world tries to fight these guys, but nope, it's here. I'm like, okay, and we get the sort of reintroduction to the alpha. The first introduction is actually when Spike and his dad are walking around and they find the deer head stuck into the tree, and we get that the amazing sort of red nighttime footage with all their eyes all lit up, and they look literally like demons. You know what I mean? Like that was another case where I'm like, I would like this to be a scene. You know what I mean? Or I would like there to be a scene where people are out here having to run from the zombies at night or something like that, because and how are they seeing at night? Is there some other level of evolution? You know, like what's going on? I thought that intercutting, whenever they were walking around and it intercut to that red footage of the zombies, it was like that got me my pit in my stomach. I was like, oh god, this is terrifying. You know what I mean? So, um, yeah, I just really was like, oh shit. Anyway, but yeah, we get the reintroduction of the Alpha, who kills all the guys in the canal, except for the one soldier who gets away. And I, I mean, the kid was interesting because here he's here to show us what the world is like today, and he shows the picture of his ex girlfriend, which I didn't buy. She looked like just a typical another model girl on Instagram, and the kid's like, "What's wrong with her lips? I've seen people get you know infections or they get allergies and their lips swell up. Like that's what it looks like." It was like that was hilarious. So it's funny that that's his reaction, because these people have been essentially stuck in that time period, and there's no other society to bounce off of. Which, to go back to him threatening his dad with his little knife, I thought this is interesting because maybe there's a reason he can be this violent this quick, and it's not just that he's had his little training experience so he's a little cocky, but more that he has nothing to base society off of. You know, he has nothing to, no other kids to. I mean, there are clearly other families there and other children, but this seems like a very kind of isolated society where even family life is a little bit isolated, because you kind of have to be a little bit extra cautious about what's going on outside the doors. So I wonder if, like, maybe that's why he's able to be like this, because he has no television, no other media to tell you this is how you should act and this is how you should not act. He's just in the raw emotion of what he's feeling that his father betrayed his mother. But I still feel like, but he was also saving your life for the last 20 minutes of this movie, kids. So I don't even understand where you're coming from. But again, you're young. When you're young and you have emotions, that's where your emotions are coming from. So, but beyond that, I thought it was fascinating seeing the pregnant zombie scene where they go to the train and the mom just kind of keys in and realizes what she needs to do to help the zombie give birth. And I was like, whoa. You know, it was just like, even the zombie in that excruciating pain couldn't resist the opportunity for help, which I thought was amazing. But then, of course, as soon as the birth is over and she has a minute to relax, becomes straight up zombie again, and the military guy kills her. So, but then you see the baby actually looks completely clean. It doesn't look infected. But then I still think about the previous movie where technically the mom was immune, but when Robert Carlyle kissed her, he turned. So I can't help but wonder, is this a ticking time bomb for our private little island, when at the end of the movie the boy leaves the baby with his people? I was very much like, what's up with this? If someone gives him milk directly, are they going to immediately turn into a zombie because they're being bitten on and having the fluid exchange? You know, that's all I could think of. Is this a ticking time bomb that's going to destroy this community based on 28 weeks later? So that's in the back of my mind with what he did that. But you know, I was really stunned by Ray Fiennes when we finally get to him, and it's the complete opposite of 28 days later, where they're trying to get to the military base, and instead of a military that wants to protect them, we have these men who have survived by the notion that they're going to get a woman and breed. You know what I mean? Which is so extreme, you know. And this is the opposite case where the doctor has embraced death, and he's still looking out for these people. He rescues Spike and his mom, but you know he's not trying to kill anybody. He's not gone mad with violence. You know, he's not trying to control anybody, but he gives his best estimation about what's going on with the mom, and the mom then reveals to the son, actually, everyone suspected this is what's going on with me, but I thought someone would tell you. I guess no one wanted to tell you that what we all felt was happening with me, because literally her nose is bleeding the whole movie. And I just thought, although again the movie's making me watch a mom die. Like, no, 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 no. You know, this is why I don't watch Fury Road, because I hate when the pregnant when what's it, her Delight or something. I hate when her character goes underneath the truck and dies like that. It always, you know, it's not just her, but then the baby too. It's like it's two in one, a mother and a child. I'm like, no, I don't want that. You know, it's something that deep rooted in me. There's a primordial fear and stuff about that. So yeah, that's so. But what I thought was amazing was how she wanted it, and the doctor did it very peacefully. And we had the setup of, you know, Samson, the alpha who's chasing his baby. It's pretty clear from the filmmaking that the baby that's born is his, because he goes straight to the pregnant zombie that's dead and is furious that she's dead. But I thought it was fascinating that the mom wanted it, and it was a peaceful death. And it kind of calls back to the beginning of the movie, that the priest welcomed death and was okay with it, and took on to his new life as a zombie with gratefulness, you know. And then it's the same with the mom, where she was like, look, you know, it's my time, and I don't want to go out in a horrific fit or bitten by a zombie. I would like to go out peacefully. And so we have the setup of the soldier's decapitated head. Oh my god, the decapitations in this movie are so crazy. But anyway, as a fan of Predator, I've always loved that. It's not something I want to see in real life, but I've always loved that visual, removing the head and the spine from a villain. You know, it's like, again, not something I would ever celebrate in real life, but for a movie, pretty epic, pretty rad, pretty terrifying. But to have that setup of the soldier's head being turned into one of the bones to go on that giant bone structure, the Tower of Skulls. I mean, when we got there, and talk about excellent trailer editing, because the trailer edits to make Ray Fiennes look like some violent, scary person, which is everyone's fear of him. And when we reveal that he's actually a very nice guy, and you know, he's only covered in red because it's iodine and it seems to help resist infection. I thought, wow, okay, this is fascinating. But the fact that he gives the mom a beautiful death and tells the son, give her a spot on the tower, give her the best spot. And the son climbs up to put the skull on the top, and I'm like, oh, and that's the other trailer shot, him climbing up there. That's right. In my head, I thought it was because zombies were chasing him, and it's like, no, it's this amazingly touching scene of him letting go of his mom. I thought, wow, like, you got me, movie. You got me. Like, whatever was weird, even though the first half of this movie was destroyed by those cackling kids, you got me right back. And then when he decided to go on his own and leave the baby, I was like, oh no, like what's gonna happen to you, kid? And then the ending scene happens, and I'm like, oh, the when all of Jimmy, the kid from the beginning, now an adult, he's hopping around in what the hell are these outfits? They're jumpsuits. They're all in Teletubby colors, jumping around, doing parkour, killing zombies. I was just like, what? This is the ending to this movie. This very bizarre. These people. I mean, it's fine if you're not afraid of zombies, but there was all the goofy parkour, and I felt like, is this a Guy Ritchie movie suddenly? I feel like these people were hanging out with the rock and roller. You know what I mean? I'm like, why do you end the movie this way? It was just so bizarre and fun, and much like the opening of the movie, like such a we bring back the rock music or the punk music, and this completely, against the grain, like 28 Days Later, which really honed in on the haunting music over haunting murder and death. This movie does the opposite and gives us light, lackadaisical music during zombie violence and death. And I'm like, what? So it was very bizarre. I don't hate it, but I question it a lot. But with the promise of more to come, because the big question is, why are they so clean? And then you see that he's flipped his cross. He got the cross from the priest at the beginning. So there's a huge question. Like, you can't help but feel like, okay, this guy must be tied up with some kind of criminals or a gang or something. He's tied up with something bad. But he doesn't seem necessarily like a bad guy. But he is running around with these kind of hooligan type characters who are hip hopping and beatboxing around the zombies. I'm like, wow, and it's okay if people have that reaction. It's just the fact that they're wearing these goofy tracksuits that just is very jarring. If they looked a little more normal, I'd be, okay, this is another clan. But no, this is we're in another universe with these people. So I'm very curious where the next movie takes this. I hear the next movie is going to be called 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple. Very curious about what Danny Boyle does next. I was a little bothered once I was always wondering what's with the 16 cameras doing a semicircle, and it's for those arrow shots, which I thought, that was okay. I kind of didn't need that effect when they killed the zombies. It was cool a couple times, but I felt like it really should have been saved for like special kills. I think it should have been like saved for specific moments, and I didn't quite feel the power of it when it was happening. They used it a couple times in the beginning when zombies were just climbing up to the church. But yeah, so the ending scene, I don't want to say I hate it, but I just question it. And nonetheless, though, the fact that the movie is so beautiful and touching makes me want to see it again. I want to totally watch this movie again. At home, though, where I can have at least some control of no hooligans laughing behind me and enjoy the movie. And I really want to watch this with fresh eyes, because part of the movie, part of my experience was just, thinking of previous experiences. And, 28 weeks later, had the theme return and did very interesting things with the original theme that I loved, even though. And then this movie does the total opposite. It abandons the old theme and doesn't even bring it back till the last action sequence where the boy's running away from the zombies. So, yeah, I would say really interesting mix of a movie. I do feel like my experience was ruined by these kids, but at the same time, part of my experience was ruined by my own expectations, because I've had two movies that use that theme song, and I'm waiting for the theme song, and I'm waiting for it to be an all hell breaks loose type of movie, and it wasn't that at all. It was actually an adventure. It was a beautiful movie. It was artistic, but I would like to see it again with fresh eyes. Now that I know that what my expectations were completely wrong about, I want to watch the movie as it is, truly as it is and try to see what Danny Boyle's really up to. And I can't wait for the DVD or some kind of behind the scenes material. I hope that we get some kind of commentary. I would love just an open exploration of every single aspect of this movie, from Danny Boyle, Alex Garland, and even the cast and crew. I'd really love to get an old school 50-minute behind the scenes breakdown of how this movie was made, because I thought this is it's kind of a fantastic film. It's just got some oddities in it that I question. I wouldn't say they hold the movie back. I just question it, and I want to know why and where it's coming from. And aside from my critiques of the beginning of the movie, I'm like, hey, I still got to the end and was happy for the most part. The ending was like, ooh, okay. But I'm like, hey, if there's going to be a sequel and you're going to answer this question, I just want to know, what was Jimmy's journey? And I hope that that's what the sequel shows. Show us his journey from when he ran away from the church to this, because that's what I'm fascinated about. So that's all I got to say. That's my thoughts on all the spoilers. I thought, man, my favorite parts of the movie are the first time on the mainland with just, well, actually, all my favorite parts of the movie are with Spike and just one parent. So in the woods. So Spike's first journey through the mainland with his dad, and then Spike's second journey, which I thought felt almost like an anime. I felt like I was watching a Studio Ghibli movie when he's walking in these epic shots with his mom across the great distance. It wasn't Lord of the Rings. It felt like Studio Ghibli. Like there's another element going on to this movie. Whatever the influence is, that's what I was feeling. So all in all, I think it was actually a great movie, but it just had moments that made me go, eh, and especially the ending. It was like, eh, that's how you want to end this, eh, you know what I mean? So, but I'm gonna give it the benefit of the doubt. I want to watch it again, and also I'm just excited for the sequel. Like, what's the sequel? What's going to be the answer to this moment? Because clearly they have more to say, and I want to see what they have to say before I finally judge this movie, because there's clearly a larger universe that they want to talk about, and I'm excited to see that. So that's the word. That's my thoughts on the spoilers. If you got this far, thank you very much for watching. Hopefully I'll see you next time. Mahalo and aloha.